The 1863 civilians of Gettysburg were reluctant witnesses to the Great Battle. Join Ken Rich, the man in the red shirt, for his historic town walking tours. You could book these tours by emailing ken@gettysburgtownhistory.com. That's ken@gettysburgtownhistory.com. And when you're in town, look for the guy in the red shirt.
This episode of Addressing Gettysburg is brought to you in part by me, audiobook narrator Mike Scott. Narrator of Savis Beattie's Bloody Autumn, the Shenandoah Valley campaign of 1864, and Unlike Anything That Ever Floated, the Monitor and Virginia and the Battle of Hampton Roads. If you are an author or publisher interested in having your titles produced as audiobooks, or even just in learning more about the process, give me a shout. You can find my contact info on my website, MikeScottVoice.com. That's MikeScottVoice.com.
And Civil War Trails. It's the world's largest open-air museum, and they offer over 1,300 sites across 6 states. Drive the Gettysburg campaign turn by turn, paddle to Frederick Douglass's birthplace, or hike to remote earthworks and artillery positions. Visit civilwartrails.org to request a brochure and explore their interactive map. Follow Civil War Trails and create some history of your own.
I got her, but...
Oh, boy.
That's the only reason I got one, actually.
Hello. Or who's taking the third on that one? Hello. Hello. Wow. That sounds like a choir of demons. That was awful.
You're listening to Addressing Gettysburg.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Addressing Gettysburg's Ask a Gettysburg Guide. And today we are talking to a favorite of the audience and Eric and myself, and people who love stained glass doohickeys. None other than the great Jessie Wheedleton. Welcome, Jessie.
Thanks.
Also sitting in here for just a little, I guess, color commentary, but also because we ran out of seats. So he's sitting in front of a microphone, is 6 Questions Length, the great Mike, 6 Questions Length. He's studying something, which always makes me nervous.
It looks old.
What is it?
It's
Pennsylvania Gettysburg?
Yep, Pennsylvania Gettysburg.
Very
Volume
nice.
2.
Volume 2.
I was reading Ricketts Brigade Monument, not Battery Monument. Battery Monument, sorry. Battery Monument dedications.
Pennsylvania Reserves.
You know, actually something interesting. I was at, home for Christmas, and I went over to my dad's, and we were, talking and stuff, and he had recently gone and found old family photo albums that he had in his possession. And he goes, yeah, have you seen these? And I started thumbing through them, and I saw them, years ago. But there was a picture of my dad and my aunt standing in front of Ricketts Monument.
Nice.
And then later the Hancock Monument back in, it had to be the 50s.
Whoa.
50s or early 60s. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. I was like, I know exactly where this is and what this is. Are you right, Eric?
Yeah, I'm fine. I had to...
What happened? Is that an ant trap?
An ant trap, yeah.
Oh, yeah, those are still around. But they're 2 years old, so...
How many of them are there?
There's about 16 of them in various places around here. No, should just keep an eye on her, Jeff. Make sure she's not eating ant traps or that bottle of arsenic that I keep under that desk there.
What are you doing?
All right. Mary Virginia, come lay down. Jesse's dog, Jenny Weed, is here today. So I call her Mary Virginia. Anyway, so, yeah.
Have you guys ever been to Ricketts Glen?
No.
I have not.
I have not. Why? What am I missing?
Well, that's Ricketts. That's what he does after the war. He
turned himself into Glenn?
It's more about land, I guess, than logging, but they log all this area in, like, east central Pennsylvania. Okay. And they sell it and preserve it, and now it's Ricketts Glen State Park.
And that's our Ricketts. That's the one from here. Very nice. Very nice. I did not know that. No, I didn't know if they were related or not.
Well, even the park rangers don't know that work there now.
Really?
Oh.
What about the park rangers that work here?
So I got married there, and they made us go. They made us travel just to promise that we wouldn't drink in the campsite. So they're like, we need to meet with you ahead of time, so you know the rules, and then you can have your wedding here.
That?
And it was a cheap wedding. But
I can't fault you for that.
Yeah.
But we're like, we're from Gettysburg, and the guy was just like, I think he had been to like several different parks. It's like, you know, it didn't mean anything to him, I guess, to be there. And
were you
like,
saying
Ricketts who? Or like Ricketts fought at Gettysburg. He's like, oh, you know, had no idea.
He didn't even realize he was working at Ricketts Glen.
But Ricketts' family has a mansion that's on a lake that's now on private property. There are a couple of his lakes that are in the park.
A couple of his lakes that are in the park.
And he named some of the lakes, but the mansion is private, where he's buried is private, and only people that know people can get in there.
Wow, see, now I want to go up there. I need to know people, though. Before we get to the subject at hand here, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Lentz, a lot of people want to know the updates every week. Every chance we get, we update people on your medical conditions.
Physical, mental, emotional.
Your wounds, your injuries, and otherwise. Most recently, you've been dealing with a hamstring and a hip.
Yes.
That have really been giving you a hard time. I mean, this is the longest one that I'm aware of since I've known you.
Yes.
That has taken a while to heal. How are we doing, Mike Lentz?
I got the all clear from the doctor today.
Very good.
They're healing up just nicely. But I'm in that danger zone for about 6 weeks. If I push myself too hard, I could re-injure them. So I have to keep an eye on myself for 6 weeks, something I admit I'm not really good at, but
I'll say, yeah.
But it's one of those cases where I am allowed to go back to work. I'm allowed to increase my activities out here on the battlefield, and so I'm very happy about that.
Can you start dating again?
Well, yes, but I wasn't doing that beforehand, so I'm not doing that now.
All right. There you go. All right. I was just asking for the ladies in the audience, just in case. Okay, so today we're talking about Union artillery, or artillery on the Union right. Is that how would you like to phrase this, Jessie?
I guess you can't just call it the right, you know. Just to refer to that section of the
Union
field.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's got to be the Union right. It's not the right. Because whose right are we talking about?
But the Confederates as well.
The right.
Just aren't that many of them.
You should have let me go around to the right. All right. So if you want to ask questions, of course, we do that with our Patron. Oh, I'll do that later, but it's patrons who get to ask questions. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Make sure that you have your notifications turned on. Also, if you use the Apple Podcast app and Spotify, please leave a 5-star rating and or review. Reviews, liking, sharing, and subscribing are the best ways to help us grow our audience. And so what we're going to do right now is talk about...
I'm looking for ant traps.
No, don't worry. She's
Okay.
all right. I think she ate all the ant traps.
We're going to talk about artillery.
We're going to talk about artillery on the Union right. And where do you start the delineation of the right? In what we're talking about today, where does the right start?
East Cemetery Hill and around the corner to kind of all the extra.
Just like
all the other hills.
Like Ziegler's Grove and around, you're saying? Or more Cemetery Hill?
Like the east side of the Baltimore Pike and then down from there.
All right.
But
okay, very good. So along the Baltimore Pike. Okay, along the Baltimore Pike. That's what we're focusing on today. That's what we're calling the Union Right. First of all, this was a tour that you did when? Back in the summer, or was that spring?
It was summer. I feel like all the ALBG walks were on Tuesday evenings, and it was like 1,000 degrees every Tuesday.
Yes, it was.
It was very hot.
They say 2021 was a year of hot Tuesdays. So.
I was impressed with the number of people that came out despite the heat.
Well, I mean, people like doing these things, and this was an interesting thing. I wanted to go, but there was something. I think we were recording or something.
No, because I went.
Oh, you went. Yeah. Where did I go then? There was a reason why, because I was torn, wasn't I?
I don't manage your schedule.
Not anymore, but you used to. At this time, you did. And there was a reason why. I can't remember what it was. So Eric went, and then I went to the other thing because I felt like, well, whatever. That doesn't matter.
Yeah, there was two.
Yeah, there was something going on. What? Did you miss me?
And I went to Jessie's talk thinking it was a 2-hour
I kept
talk.
searching in the crowd like, where's Matt?
I know.
And you were never there.
And then everybody said that you were a little off after that, after you realized. Okay, Jeff, you putting on your own show in the corner there?
Don't know if there's ant traps.
Oh, there is. And a couple of roach traps. And a mouse trap.
Come on, dog.
All poison, by the way.
If she gets the
just
mouse
pull her.
trap, she probably
pull her by her
won't do
tail.
it. Just grab her by her collar and pull her.
Yeah, just pull her out. It's okay.
right, dog.
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. We're off to such a bumpy start here with this one.
The dog.
There's a dog. Oh God, what the hell was that?
It's a little piece of.
It's not.
Oh, good
okay.
Lord!
Place.
There's all this clunking going on. Good heavens! All right, Jeff.
Yeah, you can't tell you're from New Jersey at all.
Why?
You turn into like a spastic over a piece of wood.
I tell you, what the hell? Hey, Jeff, why don't you sit all the way back against the bookshelf so she can't get into the corner there? There you go. There you go. Good boy, Jeff.
Just look mean.
All right.
Sure,
All right. Now everybody shut up. All right. So, Jesse. All right. Start us
We're gonna
July
talk about
1st.
artillery.
Yes. How are we going to start? July 1st is when the battle starts, so that's probably a good place to start. How does the right become the right? And what is the right? Go.
Oliver Howard is the first person to put people and cannons on the hill. And he's got Weidrich's battery up there first with 6 rifles as like Barlow's going out and everything on the first day. But as far as kind of setting everything up for the fishhook line, then Howard's going to be the first person kind of arranging people until Hancock arrives on the end of the first day. And so George Meade is sending Hancock to the field to tell him, is this the place where we're going to fight? And Hancock tells him, well, yeah, but the position can be easily turned. So already they're talking about the possibility that the Confederates could get around kind of the shorter section of high ground to the right of the Baltimore Pike. And I guess also when you think of the right, it's the right of the 2 roads that they've got to protect, the Taneytown and Baltimore Pike.
Okay.
So the Pike being George Meade's supply line, that's a very important one. And they're worried about that from the evening of the first day throughout the rest of the battle, really.
And so when Howard is in command, he's got Weidrich's battery up there, and then eventually does he start building onto Weidrich's battery with the other batteries in his corps?
And yes, and he has Thomas Osborne, who he's in direct communication with. Osborne's the 11th Corps Artillery Chief, and then Wainwright is the 1st Corps Artillery Chief, and they're both going to find themselves on the hill. And Osborne had just been recently put with Howard, but they work really well together from the beginning. And Osborne and Wainwright work really well together and basically decide as all these batteries are falling back from the first day. The 1st Corps got hit really badly. The 11th Corps was kind of setting up in the streets as they're retreating as far as the artillery goes. And so as they're kind of collecting on the hill, they basically decide that Wainwright's going to be the west side of the Baltimore Pike, and Osborne's just going to command everything to the east side of it. So they'll have some of their batteries mixing in and kind of being pulled left and right at different points in the next couple days, but that kind of keeps things more organized as far as who's telling who what to do.
All right. And then, so July 2nd, when the battle's actually, more underway and the armies have built up and everything like that, what's going on the right with the artillery?
Well, it actually starts... there's an event that happens that is it's uneventful, but it was done in preparation for the possibility that the Confederates could come around that flank early in the morning. So everyone's scrambling around thinking, at daylight, Robert E. Lee might be ready to go with something. And they try to get all these cannons, and the scanned map I have in my hand.
Here, I'll hold it, and then you talk. You keep talking. You're talking. This is the Leno book that you got this map from, 169, because I'm going along in the book here too. So
yeah, so in the Leno book, in the morning of the second day, they have that arrangement of how many cannons are really pointed at the right flank. It's something I really, whenever I sign up for these battle walks, I kind of sign up for a topic I know nothing about so that I am forced to learn more about it.
I like that.
And I had no idea about this when I started it. Like, oh my God, there's like 50 cannons over there that morning. And it just kind of shows you their concern. And it's also in the... might be Tipton photographs.
So it's what's interesting though is looking at this is that if you go down the pike there are a lot of batteries on this road, and they're not all on Powers Hill. They're spread out all along the road. So I guess one thing that might help someone who is studying all this stuff that might come today after looking at these maps and reading all these books and hearing this episode is what was the sight line back then? Like, as far as woods go, I mean, they're marked on the, there you go, look at that. There's a picture.
Okay. So
now, where's that from?
I think these are Brady photographs. Am I right? It kind of looks like what they do, like over in Reynolds Woods, like a couple weeks afterwards. So they go over to Spangler's Meadow. Okay.
Give it to me and I'll show it to the audience.
They go over Spangler's Meadow. And this is the gap, I call it, that they're concerned with. It's like a corridor that has actually been pretty recently cleared by the Park Service. When they did Powers Hill and cut down the trees, they actually went across Baltimore and they cleared this big field that leads to Spangler's Spring. So the picture I'm talking about is in one of the Then and Now books.
You know what I love
but
about
it's looking from the Baltimore Pike,
about all that clearing out there and everything like that, and actually I think this goes back to when the visitor center was built, is that phantom left turn lane at the light here coming south on the Baltimore Pike, and how many times I know a tourist is ahead of me because I see them put their signal on to go left and they don't pull into a driveway, and next thing I know they go into that left turn lane, and I sometimes I actually, like, if nobody's coming behind me, I'll actually stop even though I have a green light. It's probably illegal, and just look at them because I want to see the look on their face when they realize they're turning into nothing, like there's nothing to turn to there. But okay, I digress. So you were saying,
so if you're driving down the Baltimore Pike and you go through that traffic light, there's the Leitner farm is still there on the right. That's where near Slocum's headquarters, and it's kind of across from that is where they're looking.
Yeah.
So if you look left, it's open. When you turn into the tour route there on, is it Colgrove or Carmen?
Colgrove.
Okay. When you turn onto that road, it's on your left as you're driving toward the kind of side entrance to Culp's Hill.
Right. Okay. And so, all right, so go ahead.
So they thought that the Confederate Army could get, if they got across Rock Creek down there, so kind of where Spangler's Meadow is, where the Indiana State Monument is, that area, that would lead them around the base of Culp's Hill and into like the belly of the Union Army.
Okay. So, how much action does the artillery over here get on July 2nd?
Well, what happens is you have this massive amount of cannons pointing that direction, and then they're just kind of holding that spot until that morning of July 2nd, infantry can be moved, more infantry to Culp's Hill. So you have the remnants of like Wadsworth's people up on Culp's Hill, but the 12th Corps was on Little Round Top that morning. So that's probably like between 8 and 9 in the morning that they start to move Greene and the 12th Corps over to Culp's Hill because they're concerned. They're concerned about that.
Sure.
So,
and I see what you're saying now.
I think he was moved there by Hancock the night of the 1st.
Okay. I see what you're saying too with where the batteries are all pointing. They're not pointing, they're across the road from Culp's Hill, but they're not pointing at Culp's Hill because there's no point in that because you're pointing at the back of your own guys. Instead, it's pointing southeast-ish.
And for the two,
towards that meadow you're talking about.
For the two U.S. batteries that are basically looking right into it, they're going to stay there.
Kinsey and Bancroft?
Because they have Napoleons. So they're going to have, a massive canister. They have 10 cannons there.
Okay. Very nice. All right.
So they stay there the whole time. Then.
Okay.
So then the infantry comes back and the artillery kind of disperses. On that map up at the top, there's actually 2 batteries that aren't going to see any more action until Pickett's charge.
What do you got? Hall or Wheeler and then Dilger?
Parsons and
Okay, so
Fitzhugh.
Towards the top, but not right at the top.
Yeah, so they're going to go away.
Okay. And where do they go?
They're held in reserve, and then on July 3rd, they're moved to kind of get into the area where batteries have been torn apart, like Cushing and Arnold's Battery.
And then I see a lot of sections, but not full batteries, like Heckman. Bancroft is in 2 sections. To 3 sections. So they're like Bancroft's split up.
And Bancroft is Wilkeson too, because it kind of gets.
No, he's dead by this point, right?
Yeah, there's a few
so
people
we don't care
that.
about him.
There aren't too many that change commanders.
Yeah.
By that
But what I'm saying is, like, they have that battery for whatever reason broken up by sections.
Well, and then they also kind of shift over to the other side of the Baltimore Pike. So now you're in the cemetery. You have these batteries being kind of moved over to kind of more evenly cover. If the infantry's got the right a little bit better, then they're going to more evenly spread. Nobody can see my hands, but
no, the people watching video can.
You're videotaping me too.
Yeah.
Damn it.
We've been doing it for a year. Like, how do you not know that's what we do now?
Did the last one too.
Yeah. Do I need to tell you every time beforehand? Just don't forget.
I think legally you have to.
Here's the disclaimer legally. When you come in that door, you're probably being recorded in some way or another. Okay.
I did put a slight bit of makeup on just in case.
I see you suspected, right? All right, Jessie. So now, July 2nd, the big deal that's going on over there on the right-hand side there.
Start firing.
Let's start shooting these cannon. Okay, we've got them all set up now. July 2nd in the morning, what happens? Anything exciting?
Not really.
Okay.
And so everybody's waiting for the main attack to show up. So
Right.
that's Longstreet, and whenever he gets ready, whenever that happens to be, the cannons start firing to let everybody know what's going on. So
Everybody on the Confederate Army is thinking that.
both sides.
Both sides.
So of course, Lee doesn't want George Meade to expect the main attack to come with Longstreet entirely. So he's telling Richard Ewell kind of the same thing he always tells him, that you can do more if you want to, but he's going to shell Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill when that starts.
Right, okay.
So that pretty much happens. At the end of when Longstreet starts his bombardment, it's probably a half hour that passes before the cannons on Latimer's, the Benner's Hill, open up.
And and then what happens there when Benner's Hill opens up? It's a crazy time.
So Latimer has like 16 guns, like mixed rifles and Napoleon's up there, but he's got another battery of 4 guns that have the 20-pound Parrots that are going to be firing at Cemetery and Culp's Hill. And on Culp's Hill, they've got Taft's battery, which has 20-pound Parrots firing back. But it's pretty... Latimer doesn't want to actually move cannons up to that ridge until they're going to fire because it's such a bad position. They don't really have good high ground over there like the ridge, like Seminary Ridge. There's nothing like that that's that good on that side.
Yeah, that's the closest thing there. Go ahead, Mike Lentz chiming in.
And I have a question about that. I was going to have a question about the artillery up on Culp's Hill. What are the sight lines then up on Culp's Hill down towards Benner's Hill at that time? Because now you have a bunch of trees in the way. So what did that look like at the time?
I don't really know exactly what I mean, of course, we know Culp's Hill is wooded, and we know that it's being used for timber as well as the grazing for the sheep, I guess, that Culp has on the farm. So what that means pretty much everywhere in the park is that the trees aren't going to be as tall as we see them today, even if there were trees there, because they're being harvested on a constant basis. Right. And one of the, I think, a good account that comes from Culp's Hill is we have junior officers being sent over there because they're only parts of the main batteries on Powers Hill that are sent to deal with that. But we have John Geary's son, Eddie Geary, who's 17 years old, in charge of 3 rifles up there. And the rifles can reach the distance. But the Napoleons can, too. They take 2 from the 1 U.S. battery that... covering the gap that we talked about over there. So they have 5 cannons over there. And when Geary talks about, he sends this letter home to his mom that I have, and he doesn't mention anything being in the way. He doesn't mention having to like clear anything out of the way. So if there was something in the way, that maybe they would have had to use artillery to shoot some of the trees. I don't know. They don't really mention doing that, so it doesn't seem like it's that much. Of an obstacle.
I mean, if you look at the map in the Leno book, at least, there's no sign of any woods on Benner's Hill. I mean, it looks like it's cleared. And, I mean, he's got little thickets of woods here and there in other areas of the battlefield. So I would imagine that he would probably be right about that. I mean,
so I could read Eddie's letter if you want.
Go ahead.
Sprinkle that in there.
Do it.
Because from what he's talking about, you can tell he can see the ridge. What's going on out there. So he writes this letter home to his mother, which he dies later that year. So, to be his mother and get this horrible letter, it's just like the things that people write home to their family members in the first place are disturbing.
Yeah.
Like the Jeremiah Gage letter.
Oh, yeah.
It's just like...
And he wipes his blood on it.
By the way...
It's like, in case you don't believe it's me, here's my blood.
Yeah. Right. So...
Yeah, what mother wants that letter?
Trying to... see with this big muff. Here, this is a convenient place.
She's blocking the camera for those of you who are just listening.
So he writes this letter on July 17th. He said, I had my section on top of the hill and with a section of brass guns was engaged in disabling a battery some 800 yards in our front. We blew up 2 of their caissons, dismounted 1 piece, and killed 25 horses. So he's got 25 horses, so he's pretty specifically...
Wow.
The rebel battery was planted in a wheat field. 3 of my men were wounded. 1 had a piece of his head knocked off, all the flesh between his shoulder and neck taken away, his right hand almost knocked off, and he was still living when we left Gettysburg. He was a terrible sight when first... So it's not enough. He's got to go into this in more detail. He was a terrible sight when first struck, and when I carried him to the rear, it almost turned my stomach, which is something that as yet has never been done.
Oh, my God.
The other 2 were not so severely wounded. And then he said, I made one very narrow escape from a shell. One of the gunners who saw the flash of one of the rebel guns hollered me to look out, one's coming, and I had just enough time to get behind a tree before the shell exploded within a foot of where I'd been standing.
God.
So,
do we have the blood pressure readings from his mom after reading that particular letter?
Yeah, really. Poor old lady.
So he turns 18 in September, and in October 29th is the Battle of Walhatchee, and he's killed in a night fight at the base of Lookout Mountain as Union reinforcements are kind of arriving to help out the troops there.
Poor fella.
Cool.
Oh, Tim. Okay. So then,
we were asking about the tree cover on Culp's Hill.
Well, yeah. So tree cover, Benner's Hill, right?
Yeah.
The view to Benner's Hill.
Yeah, the view to Benner's Hill. Okay, and so what? Now talk about Latimer's battalion though a little bit. Okay. Like go into some detail with that because I mean there's some stories out of what those guys went through. How long did it take place? The bombardment there.
Just through reading like the monument dedication type accounts, 2 hours is a common length of time.
Okay.
So which is,
that's that's a
big deal
long
out of the
time.
bombardment before Pickett's charge, but the second day is really as intense, if not more sometimes. It's just that it's not happening as concentrated in the same area.
Yeah.
But like when Longstreet's assault is in full swing on the second day, you have all the Union guns at the Peach Orchard and cannons all the way down to Big Round Top. So that's a massive artillery fight by itself over there.
Sure.
But still, then you have the Confederate batteries all the way back to the seminary that are firing at Cemetery Hill because, they're not going to do nothing at that time. Who knows how far the attack's going to go. And the Union batteries are firing back. So you have all of that happening, and then like between Benner's Hill and Cemetery Hill, Culp's Hill, and as I was going over the Powers Hill batteries, the Maryland battery, that's what's his name, Rigby up at the top. They mentioned firing on the second day at Benner's Hill. That's the only time they're engaging with Confederate batteries. So apparently they're in a position, but not everybody on Powers Hill that could see out to Benner's Hill. So if you count that battery, there are 36 cannons versus 20 on Benner's Hill.
So 20 cannon on Benner's Hill. And, so they're outnumbered, they're outpositioned, they're on a horrible platform for artillery unless no one else is shooting at you. It's a great little hill to, say, shell the town if you wanted to. Or even Culp's Hill. But if somebody's shooting back, no longer is this a great place to hold your artillery. Correct?
And they're getting a crossfire because of the two positions, because of Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say it's due to any like natural flaw in the position itself so much as it is like you've got guns in essentially 3 different places that are converging all of their fire on you.
Yeah. It's the
you're going to have problems.
The problem is more with the placement of the enemy's troops in relation to the where you are on Benner's Hill.
Yeah.
And they just have better placement. Jeff Caravella screaming out a question. Go ahead.
Did they assume like it's just like this is the best place we can put the guns and we're just gonna have to deal with it?
It's like the only position.
Yeah, it's the only one.
I think if there was a better place, they would have found it and put it there.
It's not like they thought they were just walking into a nice hill that nobody could see.
No.
Like it was like we're gonna.
These aren't idiots. They've been at this for a couple of years by now. You know.
Yeah, no,
it's easy to think they're idiots in hindsight, though.
Well, they're just different.
I mean, I don't know what proof there is behind this, but that could be another reason why they don't think the attack's going to turn into something too big from that side, because they don't have very good support.
All right, so let's get into this. Latimer's Battalion. So give me some stories from Latimer's Battalion as they're getting torn to shreds.
Okay. Well, I guess the description I like is the one, I think they have it on the wayside out there too. It's just of the guy who's riding up there after it already happened, said it basically looks like their caissons and wagons have been shoved off of the ridge. There's like a dip behind it, and there's all this destruction back there. And there are horses that are still alive in the range trying to, that are a threat to the artillerists. They're having to shoot the horses. It's just so these horses are wounded and otherwise scared and on the ground and still all enraged. And there's troops trying to calm them, and maybe some wounded troops nearby, and these things are flailing around, and they're just as dangerous as a bullet or a cannonball. It's kind of the most depressing. I don't know. There are a lot of depressing things you see as an artillerist, but traumatic things maybe. But it's like at the end of every battle, they got to walk around and kill the horses that aren't going to make it. You know? And you've already fought the battle, and now you got to go around and kill these horses.
Right. They kind of touch on that in Glory after Antietam.
And everybody else is like on the first day, darkness falls, and people are hearing these pistol shots as they're killing all.
Poor little
it's
animals.
not something I like to talk about too much because.
Well, you came to the wrong place.
People only get sad when you talk about the horses.
Nobody cares about the people, but the horses and the dogs. Yeah, it's true though.
He's I talk all day about thousands of people being slaughtered, but then when you talk about just a couple horses, oh no.
I wonder why that is though.
Oh, they're innocent bystanders.
They are. They're dragged into it, right? They're not. They don't care who voted for who. They're just something that we drag into all this mess. It is sad. What?
4,000 horses. Dead? Was that the number?
Well, no, the number I always hear is 5,000. Although I forgot what I was reading the other day, but they're thinking it was probably that's the whole campaign.
Well, the artillerists are returning the best numbers in loss of horses because it's so crucial to their operation.
Right.
And then it's like you take the amount of horses that the artillery lost, which is like 1,800 or something, and then you figure, well, if they lost that many, then there have to be.
Is that what they're doing with that number?
Yeah, it's very much an estimate.
Because nobody really knows is the point, and the number that's been going on around has been 5,000. But then I can't remember where the hell I was when I heard this, but they were saying that's probably, or not probably, but that's through the whole campaign. Those are the losses that were reported through the campaign. I don't know, Mike. You
Yeah, I mean, losing horses is tragic, and especially for a battery, because that's how you transport your battery, right? Yeah. But explain the caissons. How serious is losing a caisson if you're an artillery battery?
Well, I mean, you got to find another place to put all your stuff. But I mean, it's especially the explosions, like when the rifled guns have 50 rounds with gunpowder packed under each one, and it can be there's like before Pickett's charge, Cushing's battery was hit, and they said it knocked people off their feet in the next battery.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
Is there anything?
Did you know the answer to that? I suspect you know the answer.
Well, partially. I mean, because when you go up there and see the battery tablets up there on Benner's Hill, they mention that. We lost one caisson, and they make sure to point that out, that this is what happened.
Interesting. Why do you think that is, Michael?
Well, because, again, it's almost, I would say, somewhat, correct me here, but unusual to have that many caissons lost in a particular artillery action.
Yeah.
And to get absolutely tattooed as they were from almost 3 different directions. They're getting fired because the Union artillery is up on an elevation advantage compared to Benner's Hill. And so they're getting hit from 3 directions elevated.
Right.
And
all they need to do is roll rocks down on you.
And so to lose caissons is unusual.
Yeah.
And as many as they lost up there is just something worthy of note. And that's one thing I look up there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Good point. Good point.
So for the walk, I went on this website called topozone.com. And they have the heights of the hills in Gettysburg above sea level.
Oh, cool.
So Benner's Hill was listed at 574. And Cemetery Hill 617, Powers Hill 577, Culp's Hill 630.
What's it called? Topozone?
Yeah.
Topozone.com.
So I don't know how perfect that this is, but I also did the distances between each one. So from Culp's Hill to Benner's Hill, it's 3/4 of a mile to the middle of the ridge. So, it's Napoleon and rifled range. From Powers Hill to Benner's Hill is 1.5, so only rifles be able to reach that. And then Cemetery Hill to Benner's Hill is only a mile.
So, all right, so we're not dealing with huge distances here between these different things. And that's the other thing, too, that I think a lot of people, when you take them out to Benner's Hill, and, Lewis Trott and I were talking yesterday, and
It's a great time of year to go out there.
It is.
So, the best time.
It absolutely is, because you can actually see what's what. And also a good time to go up on Culp's Hill, up in the tower, and just in Culp's Hill in general, and just to get a better feel for the terrain under the tree canopy. But Lewis and I were talking yesterday, Lewis Trott, LBG extraordinaire, and he said that he was walking around one day, and he was up on Little Round Top, and the cars out on the Emmetsburg Road look so far away. They're like the size of ants. They're very small. And then yet he was somewhere else, and I can't remember where, and it didn't look so far away. And then we got into talking about how different vistas from different points on this battlefield play with distance, like optically somehow. That makes it like when you're on Little Round Top,
the elevation is
like when you go on Little Round Top, you feel like you're looking at the entire world, right? You look like you feel like you're above everything, but you're not. It's just an illusion. Just looks that way. Because those mountains off in the distance are taller than you are. So what gives? What gives? I don't know. But when you go up to Benner's Hill and you look at Culp's Hill, it's not very far at all. I mean, it's frighteningly close. I would not want to be in Latimer's battalion facing that. With no tree cover, no nothing. Just no way. It's
they've
too
got
close.
direct aim at the flank of that ridge.
Yeah, they would have had to roll those guns into place fully loaded. Because the minute you show yourself up there, any watchful Yankee gunners are going to be like, bam, 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 bam. That's it.
Yeah.
You're not even going to get in place.
Geary's son points that out in his letter, is he's able to see enough to count how many guns he can see dismounted, caissons exploded, and horses killed.
Yeah.
From up there on Culp's Hill.
Yeah.
That's
pretty good.
That's pretty, yeah.
I just can't imagine that, and he didn't even have the observation tower to look at. He had to just do that through the trees, which I'm sure that cuts him down, so it was easier. But that's not the point. Anyway, Jessie, go ahead. Give us you got any human interest stories from the attack with Latimer's men? I mean, we talked about the horses and the reins.
Latimer's wounded, but not until later. So he's still okay at that point. But there's a battery commander that's killed. Brown, maybe.
Brown, okay.
But Latimer brings 4 Napoleons back onto the ridge. Then later that evening, after the bombardment is over, after they've been destroyed, he's still able to pull cannons up to support the evening attack until it gets too dark and the infantry get too close.
Okay.
So that's when he's shot in the arm, and his horse is shot from under him, but he falls under the horse, and they have to drag it off of him. He doesn't die until August, but he keeps getting taken to different hospitals on the retreat because he doesn't want to be captured. So they keep moving him, and one of the men that fought with him said if he hadn't been so worried about being captured, he might have survived.
All the moving around.
I think it's like gangrene that kills him. He
Oh,
had to have his arm amputated.
Good for him.
But he's not really able to properly recover from it. My favorite human interest story that I included from there was of a person who wasn't there. But I guess a bunch of people haven't heard of this story. I guess I thought it was more widely heard. But have you ever heard of Richard Snowden Andrews and the gut wound that he survives? He wears a metal plate over the small amount of skin that grows over. He was disemboweled at the Battle of Cedar Mountain in 1862.
Yes, we just talked about this on the last show we recorded.
Oh, really?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
What did they say?
They said,
I don't wanna...
well, we were just talking about this. They didn't deliver a verdict or anything. It was just they were talking about the story and how everybody said he was going to die. Well, you tell the story. I don't want to take your story away from you.
Well, and the reason I like to include it is just not only do artillerists see things that are awful, but when they're wounded, it's awful. And just the fact that people survive some of the wounds, it's just as dangerous to load your own cannon, as we'll see in John Chase's case. It explodes as he's loading it. If you survive, it means you've been ignored several times, because when you get back to the hospitals, they're performing triage. They're not supposed to save you first, and you've got to wait until everyone gets their lesser surgeries, and then it's your turn if you've made it that long. So often these guys make it because they beg for their life enough or maybe they rank high enough that people listen to them as well. But so the story of Andrews was actually. Okay, so he's disemboweled in 1862, survives, long story short. And then he's back in the Army. He's in charge of what becomes Latimer's battalion at Gettysburg. He was in charge of the battalion before, and he started out with one of the Maryland batteries. He organized one of the Maryland batteries in the battalion. So he's back, and he's with the battery until Winchester, and then he's wounded again. So he's still with the Army because Latimer is out of commission. He writes the battle report for the Battle of Gettysburg.
Okay.
But he's just, and then he's like part of the Confederate Secret Service afterward. He's sent overseas. He's trying to convince the Germans and all sorts of people send supplies to the Confederacy. And I guess there's some story of him like opening up his shirt and showing them his wound, and they're like, we'll give you whatever you want.
Take my wife.
But his uniform, his torn uniform, is in a Maryland museum. You can just see how it's all like torn apart, but I'm sure they cut it open to get to it. But they give him a special plate that he's got to wrap around his stomach to keep it protected.
Right. Is this the guy who was basically left for dead by all the medical people, and two brothers who were surgeons came along?
Yes.
Hey, this is that guy.
Yeah.
This is an amazing story, but listeners, you've already heard it because it came out in the last episode with Rick and Fran. But in case you haven't, it's these guys, these doctors, they come across him. And what was it that I think it was that they had experience with their dog or a fox or some animal?
There's different versions. There's a version that Snowden's wife or Andrew's wife tells, and then there's the version that comes from the doctors of the things that he's saying to them. So he's begging people also, like when he's initially wounded, the battle is still going on, and there are people riding past him, kicking up dirt into his wounds. Like they said there was grass and dirt and everything in
They
his...
actually had to clean his intestines.
So it's like he tells a story about a fox that he saw, or a hound that was hunting that got caught on a fence and its guts were ripped out and it survived.
Right.
So that's one of the.
Is that what I was
stories
confusing?
He's like trying to, like, this dog survived, so I'll survive. And then when he's talking to the doctors, one account is like. The doctor's telling him there's no chance he'll survive, and he's like, well, tell me what that chance is. What's my chance?
Yeah.
1 in a million, 1 in whatever. And when they tell him, he's just like, well, as long as there's some chance, that's enough. And then his wife says that, of course, the needle they used to stitch him up was rusty.
You're complaining. At least he's saving your life, honey. I mean, come on. She's all mad because it was rusty. Jessie's not amused.
And I guess I was just saying. So he's
like,
not here at Gettysburg, but we already mentioned John Chase's. That's when he's wounded in that bombardment as well.
Yeah. It had to be frightening to be up there on Benner's Hill with Latimer's battalion. Absolutely frightening. All that shit just flying at you. And then it lands somewhere and it blows up a caisson or goes through your buddy or. I don't know. I don't know how they did it. I don't know how they did it. Mike Lentz with a question.
Yes, absolutely right. It was Captain William Brown who was mortally wounded of the Chesapeake Artillery. On their tablet, they say losses: 4 killed, 12 wounded, horses killed, 9.
9 horses and Brown. Joseph?
William
Brown. Billy Brown. Dead. How did he die? Doesn't say. We don't know this. All right, Jess. So now let's move down the line a bit. So there's Benner's Hill, Culp's Hill, that whole thing going on there. But Powers Hill is another hill. And it's
sure is.
And it's over there on the right. And very few people go to it. It's not easily accessed. It's not difficult per se, but it's not particularly easy to access it. But you get up there and you can see Benner's Hill. And Bob Steenstra and I went up there one time, and we oh yeah, there it is. There's Benner's Hill. You can see it. Now, of course, it was this time of year.
And they added another water tower out there on Benner's Hill.
Oh, thank God. So now we can definitely see it.
I know exactly what water tower you're looking at.
Well, I'm glad you told me that, because that's going to throw me off now, because I didn't know that. And if I go out there looking for the one, I'll be like, wait, they've moved Benner's Hill.
There's like a small one that's out there, but then there's a larger one that is closer. And when you're looking at, now it's double water towers. When you're looking at it, that's like, if you're looking from Cemetery Hill, Powers Hill, whatever, out that way, it's all the way to the left of the ridge. It's on the other side of the Hanover River.
Yeah, okay. All right, but Powers Hill. Focus.
Yep.
Okay, so Powers.
I need to focus.
Powers Hill. I'm the professional. I know how to jump in and out. You have to just stay with me. Focus. Okay. What were we talking about? No, Powers Hill. Who's up there?
Batteries.
Oh, that's your answer. I thought you were clarifying.
So there are 3 batteries, and there's one battery. So if you walk up the trail, the one that's closest to the top of the hill is the Maryland battery.
Is that Atwell?
Rigby. Atwell is Knapp's battery from Pittsburgh.
Got it.
And then there is another Winnegar's battery is the one that's the furthest down. It's got all the shells around it in the monument.
So, wait, real quick, whose son is in Knapp's battery? Isn't there a general?
That's Eddie Geary.
Okay. Got it. Okay, so Knapp's battery or Atwell, Eleanor Rigby is up there, and then Winnegar?
Yeah. So Winnegar only has 4 rifles, I believe. And they're going to be split on either side of the Baltimore Pike.
There we go. I see that.
By the morning of the 3rd day.
Okay. All right. And then what do they participate in?
The only Rigby's battery mentions participating in the Benner's Hill bombardment.
Okay.
But then the morning of July 3rd, in preparation or to to fire at the part of Culp's Hill that's taken over by the Confederates. They're going to participate.
Down in that little meadow there. Yeah. Okay. And then, that's a good position to be in there. There's a question later, and I don't want to take it away from them, but I'm going to. Do they participate in the bombardment before Pickett's charge from Powers Hill?
No.
Okay. Can't see what they're shooting at.
It affects the two U.S. batteries that are covering the gap, which is Kinsey and Ruggs Battery. Those are the tablets you see when you drive Hunt Avenue in front of the Visitor Center.
Yeah, okay.
So they are going to get accidental overshot from behind them, and that's why they have casualties. Is because on July 3rd they're getting hit by
overshots.
Yeah.
And that was something interesting when we did something. I don't remember if it was when we were talking about the Spangler Farm or when we were down there for the tour, but a lot of overshoots on July 2nd from the southern end of the field. The Confederate overshoots were landing in and around Spangler's Farm, and also the bombardment before Pickett's charge. But I'm just imagine the misery of that scene, and now you've got shells landing. Well,
but the batteries that are further up Cemetery Hill on the still East Cemetery Hill, like Ricketts and Weidrich and Breck, which is taken over for Reynolds from the first day. There are batteries from other battalions that are up on Benner's Hill now that are trying to distract the batteries on Cemetery Hill by firing on the third day.
Oh, that's a good question. I didn't ever think of that. So after
it's not
Latimer's
as sustained as the second day,
right? But after Latimer is wiped off the hilltop, they don't give up the hilltop. They put more batteries up there.
It's going to be like you roll them up when you're ready to go.
Okay, so they've got them ready to go, but they're not sitting up there waiting because they would be picked off.
So I have a question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
So going back to July 2nd, so Rigby's Maryland battery is up there on Powers Hill. They say they're firing into Benner's Hill. The Chesapeake artillery is there. They're also Maryland. So we always make a big deal of the first Marylands going against each other at Culp's Hill. I've never heard the Maryland artillery batteries, one firing into the other.
And it's like I just don't. I have a hard time seeing them firing over everything else to fire at Benner's Hill, But I guess I don't know how involved they are on the second day, but they're definitely firing against Maryland troops then the next morning, infantry.
I think it's more doable than it seems in our minds.
Those batteries are definitely across from each other.
Yeah.
And they claim they fired over there.
Yeah, no, I believe it. Because like I said, you could see it.
Because it's always like the infantry on Culp's Hill don't really face off against each other, Union and Confederate. But the Union artillery fires at the Confederate Maryland infantry that takes over lower Culp's Hill.
Oh, I see. Yeah. What about now? I know we're talking Culp's Hill and Powers Hill and everything, but what about East Cemetery Hill? I know, crazy. We got some stuff going on up there. You got some batteries there. There's the big attack July 2nd at night. What does the artillery do in that instance?
Well, they have to kind of recover from the Benner's Hill bombardment, and Cooper's battery only had 4 rifles that needed to be replaced, and so Ricketts battery is brought up from the reserve. Pennsylvania battery, that's like one of the combined batteries. So they come in. They have 6 rifles, and they're going to move into that spot. Stevens battery is the main battery. Greenleaf Stevens was wounded on the first day. So now a guy named Ed Whittier commands the battery, but they're guarding the gap between Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill. And they're going to be involved partially in the Benner's Hill bombardment. And the guns that they use are so hot from firing that they can't touch them for hours, they said afterwards. And then they think, it's over, that was it, because no infantry attack follows right away, but then it starts to get dark, and now the Latimer's bringing those few guns up on the ridge again out there, and the infantry are advancing. So as they start to come out of the town, at first it looks like they're coming for the remnants of the Iron Brigade and Stevens Battery and the gap there between Culp's and Cemetery Hill.
Over on Stevens Knoll.
What they're doing is they're coming out of the town from north to south and then swinging toward Cemetery Hill. So then and that's not the only thing that's happening. So before they're hit directly, the first infantry attack is toward Culp's Hill. So it's kind of like Longstreet's attack. It's going to be these several waves that are coming. You hit them on the furthest end, Culp's Hill, then Cemetery Hill, and then from the town. So as the infantry advance, Ricketts, I think, is the one that mentions being able to see the infantry in the distance and do something about it, because it's not quite black out yet. But then they disappear into the woods. They can see some smoke, but then it's too close. They can't see anymore. So they're not going to be firing at the Culp's Hill assault. But then that infantry swings out of the town and comes for them up the hill. And they can't really see exactly what the 11th Corps is going through down at the base of the hill underneath them until the 11th Corps can't hold anymore and those soldiers run back through the batteries. So Ricketts doesn't give a very nice account in regards to the German soldiers running from the front line. He can't see what's going on down there. And then as it gets even darker, so now it's like 10 o'clock, it's dark. And as the men of the Louisiana Tigers, the Louisiana soldiers are closer to the town, the North Carolina soldiers are a little bit further toward Stevens Knoll, and they're making it up the slope then in the dark.
So how does the artillery, what role does it play in the defense of Cemetery Hill, East Cemetery Hill?
So they're going to use any short-range ammunition they can to hold the infantry back, and then as they get up to the batteries, they're going to be fighting in hand-to-hand combat until they can get anybody to support them. And that's where George Meade's interior lines come in, because they're able to see he's basically zipped up everything on the other side of the fishhook by that point, so late, and he's able to send a brigade from Alexander Hayes' division of the 2nd Corps across through the cemetery to sweep the Confederates out of there.
Is that Carroll's brigade? Yeah. Jeff, you have a question?
Yeah, about Stevens Knoll on the assault. Were they? You have so just picture the monuments. I mean the cannon. You've got like some Iron Brigade to the right of the artillery, and then like the 33rd Massachusetts to their left. Are there any other infantry troops on Stevens Knoll, or is there just like a gap between the hill and the guns?
Yeah,
wonderful.
They're going to, their best weapon is canister, so they really can't have anyone like right in their front.
Front,
so,
yeah.
But yeah, the 33rd is the closest
That's
to them
closest.
down there.
I would imagine
they're kind of underneath them, so they have to watch out for that for them behind as this is going on.
And I would imagine Stevens Battery is probably doing some good raking the flanks of the...
Yeah, so Edward Whittier writes... So this is from Maine at Gettysburg. Edward Whittier writes a very detailed account of that whole day. Really? Because 400 yards is canister range, and that's pretty far.
Yeah, it is.
They can reach
4 football fields, essentially. Yeah, but go ahead.
Yeah, so they can pretty much reach the whole way across the attack, and that's what they talk about. Just how, and that's an awful thing to see.
What's the story with the German gunner and the Confederate claiming his gun?
Yeah. Or did you say what's the story?
Yeah, tell me the story.
I don't speak German, but
but he says
Eric's like ready to go. He's like sitting up.
Eric knows you know it, Eric?
Look at me.
I don't know, because you're German this,
you look
German
like you
that.
want to say it.
Yeah.
So it's Louisiana soldiers that are coming up to.
You would think it would be
Weidrich's
French.
Guns. They're a German battery.
Oh, yeah, the other way around. Sorry. Let me just cut that out. I look like an idiot. All right. So go ahead.
So the Confederate says something like, I'm going to take this gun, and
I take
German
this
says,
gun in the name of Louisiana. And then the German says, Ich bin ein Berliner. And then shoots him.
which means you shall have it.
Du
then you
sollst
shall
sie
have
haben.
it, right?
Du sollst sie haben.
Du sollst sie haben.
Du sollst sie haben.
Yeah, close enough. You're from North Jersey.
Yeah,
half
we.
Italian.
That's the Jersey
you guys
accent
don't
speaking
even pronounce
German.
your own language correctly.
No, we don't know that shit.
That's what you have to say to summon their ghosts at night.
Huh?
I said that's what you have to say, that German phrase to
the ghosts?
summon their ghosts at night.
Oh, is that how it works?
Probably.
So wait, did the German gunner die? No,
he pulls
no.
the
So
cord
why is
with the
his
canister.
ghost there? Speaking German. Why do I need to speak German to summons his ghost? I should be speaking Creole.
I mean, he's dead now.
Well, that's true. And then he probably went to the afterlife after.
That's my favorite dad joke of all the bad dad jokes I've heard through all the Segway tours I've done.
What?
It's like when somebody's like, well, who did this person die? Did this person die? And they say, well, they're all dead now.
Perfect.
It's like you drive by a cemetery, you go, you know how many people are in there are dead? All of them. Or people are just dying to get in there. It's like, oh, great, Dad. That's just as funny today when you tell it as it was 50 years ago when your dad told it to you.
When I was like 6 years old, my father would just say, that's where we all end up one day.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that was another one, too. We'll all be there. Anyway, so why don't we do this? Let's take a break. And after the break, we're going to come back and we're going to do the questions. We've got 3 people in the studio here. Of course, Mike Lentz, you know that he's on the microphone. Jeff Caravella, dog sitter. And Rick Scarce. Rick Scarce over there in the corner. Hello, Rick. I met you on Thanksgiving at the Farnsworth House for our Thanksgiving dinner. You were there. And it was nice to meet you. And so we'll open the floor to anybody that might have any questions or anything like that. In the meantime, why don't you go grab yourself some popcorn and a nice glass of creme de menthe.
Energy drink.
A V8 energy drink, yes. And we'll be right back after these words.
Our friends at the Association of Licensed Battlefield Guides want to see you at their 2022 Fall Seminar on September 23rd through 25th. This year's topic is Hancock's Second Corps at Gettysburg, with a full weekend of education and social activities devoted to General Hancock and his Corps. The Licensed Battlefield Guides have some superb Second Corps-themed battlefield tours lined up for you, including Attack of the Irish Brigade, Caldwell Strikes the Wheat Field, and more. On top of that, there will be a Friday night speaker and dinner at the Dobbin House, Saturday night cigars at the Rupp House, maps, and other extras. And if that wasn't good enough, how about this? Special hotel room rates are available for you at the 1863 Inn of Gettysburg, but you gotta make sure that you reserve a room before August 9th. Register for the tours on the ALBG website at gettysburgtourguides.org/ALBG seminar. Those dates again are September 23rd through 25th. Come and learn about Hancock and the Second Corps with your favorite licensed battlefield guides and fellow Gettys nerds. We hope to see you there.
You've heard us promote various ways that you can help us keep the show going, but one way we haven't pushed too much is our sutlery at addressinggettysburg.com/shop. That's a shame because we have designs over there by talented artists like Ty DeWitt of 1863 Designs and Mike Stretch of the Heritage Depot. So now we're promoting it. Buying shirts, hoodies, mugs, and other items from our sutlery not only helps us keep the lights on, but it also helps guys like Ty and Mike, and it helps spread the word about the show every time you wear an item or you sip from your mug. So head over to addressinggettysburg.com/shop and grab some merch. It's the perfect Christmas gift for the Gettys nerd in your family. That's addressinggettysburg.com/shop.
Has a wide variety of titles, new and used, of military books from publishers like Osprey, Gettysburg Publishing, Stackpole, Savas Beatty, UNC Press, and more. I make it a point to go there once a week because I have new bookshelves to fill and I never know what treasures I'll find, and neither will you. They even have toy soldiers, model kits, games, children's books, and more. So stop by and check them out on your next visit to Gettysburg, or better yet, order right now online at forthehistorian.com and mention that you heard about them on Addressing Gettysburg in the Note to Seller box, and they will refund you your shipping. And if you call 717-685-5207 or stop by the store on your next visit and mention us, you'll get 20% off retail price. That's forthehistorian.com or 717-685-5207.
What do Getty's Bike Tours customers say?
Very family friendly. We had a wonderful time with our son.
Me and my friends were able to rent these bikes and go at our own pace, so we were able to just do what we wanted to do when we wanted to do it, and I highly recommend it to anybody else.
Seemed like the right way to go to view the wonderful sights and also get an incredible amount of history from Bob.
Our tour guide Bruce was so knowledgeable about the facts and the history of these battlefields that I came away with an understanding that was unmatched by any other means.
The breeze on the battlefield made up for the hot day.
I had a wonderful time, great trip, lots of history, wonderful bike ride, perfect weather. Could have asked for a nicer day. Highly recommend it.
If you're going to tour Gettysburg, I would recommend doing it on the bike. It's a lot of fun.
I loved it. It was awesome.
We really couldn't stump the professor with any of our questions, so we thought it was really well worth it.
It was an excellent day out and got you outside and experienced the weather. Beautiful weather out here today.
We had a lot of fun. If you're thinking about it, I'd just say give it a shot. It was awesome for us. I hope it's awesome for you guys too.
Go to gettysbike.com or call 717-752-7752 to book a battlefield experience you will never forget.
The Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum, is housed in the historic Lutheran Seminary building constructed in 1832, a witness to the first day of battle. The museum's 3 floors of exhibits connect visitors to the dilemmas that led to the Civil War, provide a powerful and personal view of the battle's first day, and explore one of the battlefield's largest hospitals. No visit to the Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center is complete without a guided tour of the building's famous cupola, where on the eve of battle, officers and civilians saw thousands of Confederate soldiers' campfires burning to the west, and Brigadier General John Buford watched for vital federal reinforcements as fighting erupted on July 1st. Today, you can stand where Buford stood and delivered the line,
"There's a devil to pay,"
and discover how this view helped chart the course of the Battle of Gettysburg. Trust me when I say, ladies and gentlemen, your trip to Gettysburg is not complete without a serious visit to the Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center, Gettysburg's premier museum. Go to www.seminaryridgemuseum.org or find them at 111 Seminary Ridge, Gettysburg. The Seminary Ridge Museum and Education Center. It all began here. 2022 marks the 11th year of licensed Battlefield Guide-led Walks Through History every Tuesday evening all summer long. Each tour is dedicated to a specific topic. These are ideal for those who desire a more in-depth look at one aspect of the Battle of Gettysburg, or for those simply looking to do something on a beautiful summer evening. Each session is $35, and you can register at gettysburgtourguides.org. That's gettysburgtourguides.org.
You're listening to the Addressing Gettysburg podcast.
Okay, we're back, and we're going to begin the questioning, but Rick Scarce, patron at large, is in the audience here today, and he had a question. Rick, what was your question that you wanted to ask Jesse?
Jesse, I'm stunned by the lack of Confederate artillery support for Hayes and Avery. You know, it's audacious to put on a nighttime attack in the Civil War at all, but have nobody backing them up is really pretty crazy. Was Latimer hoping, to knock out enough federal cannon that they wouldn't be able to fight off the charge that way? What's the thinking there?
I think just to distract them as much as they weren't expecting all of them to, it's like they weren't expecting all of them to be wiped out, and now they have nothing, but they're still doing it, is what you're saying. Yeah. But part of the reason for that, to take advantage of the fact that they're attacking Culp's Hill, that's probably, more inspiration to do something, to follow that up. But that darkness would help them get closer to the federal batteries that, the federal batteries can't see. And when you stand there, the ground is not flat at all, and people sink into those ditches out there in the field.
You're talking the field
in front of East Cemetery Hill.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is how would you know what you're shooting at if it's dark?
Well, and another problem is that the hill is it's too steep over there. Kind of like Smith's battery on Devil's Den lost three guns because when you look out from there, it's kind of the same thing. You see them coming in at distance.
Right.
Then when they get close to you, they disappear, and the next time you see them, they're right in front of you.
And you can't do it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's, in a larger scale, that's what happens to them on Cemetery Hill.
It had to be a mess, that fight on East Cemetery Hill.
Well, and I always tell people to like go to the art stores and look at the paintings because, these people spend, days and days trying to imagine what something would have looked like, and they
spend a lot longer than
do all the
days.
work.
Yeah.
They do all the work for you, making the paintings of what it looks like when the light from a muzzle blast is flashing off the cemetery building.
Right.
Or, and how chaotic it would be when people are bashing people's skulls in with rocks and, the hand spike is like The Walking Dead, It's got like metal bands around it, this nasty stuff that they're fighting with. And you see it for a couple seconds and then the lights go out and you don't know, who's friendly, who's not. And
well, that's the thing. It must have been like fighting in a strobe light.
Yeah.
Like, you're not seeing the full picture, you're only getting little snapshots of it.
And there's confusion all over the battlefield, like when the
dog growling.
It's my stomach now. Matt's stomach has ripped in.
I'm dying. Go ahead.
But when the Louisianans are at the top of the hill is another famous story of when Carroll's brigade is coming to the rescue through the cemetery, they just see these dark shadows and they think it's Rhodes' attack, that there's a third wave that's supposed to help them, and they think it's them coming from the town, and these people fire at them, and your first thought is like, you just want it so badly to be Confederate troops helping you, and is that, well, maybe they don't know we're up here, and maybe they don't know that the Confederate Army has made it this far up the hill, and they try to yell out to them that they're friendly troops, and they fire at them again, and they realize, well, first of all, you don't have any help coming, and second of all, the Union Army does.
Yeah.
So you've got nothing to do but fall back to where you started and even further back for when day breaks. And
it's a real mess. Jeff in the peanut gallery, you have another one.
Can I ask an infantry question about Cemetery Hill, or only artillery?
Go ahead.
So
don't ever say I'm not a sport.
You're a good sport. So your picture, East Cemetery Hill, you've got that football field that wasn't there, right? You have the houses and the water tower. And I remember at some point, this is always a part of the battlefield that I forget a little bit, because I saw it in the map. There's that little, where there's the stone wall and the bottom of the hill, it's like rock. You've got
on Wainwright Avenue?
Yeah, you've got the Connecticut Monument, then you have the Ohio guys, right? Are they like stuck in that little rock wall area when like the Confederates are pushing up the hill? Like, what's happening in that? I feel like in the map they talk about them being only like by themselves, and everybody else is on the top of the hill, and they're stuck at an island.
Who's stuck?
Connecticut and Ohio.
Connecticut, okay. Oh, yeah.
And they've got those two like flank markers right there.
Yeah.
What is that part of the battle? Like, I feel like I forget in the map, but I was just looking at it the other day. I feel like they're cut off from the rest of the troops for a while.
Kind of.
You're talking about like Cemetery Hill being a dramatic fight. I always picture.
Well, and it's dark, and they don't know like what's happening beside them. Everybody else fell back, I guess. But yeah, I'd have to look into the details of that. I'm not sure.
They aren't completely cut off, but they do have. There's a point where they do not have any support on their left or right, and Confederates of, I think that's Avery's brigade, or no, that's Hayes' brigade, are getting around both of their flanks, and that's about the same time that they're forced out of that position.
Okay.
But they're not like cut off, fighting 360 degrees.
It's not like a fluid.
Yeah. They have
retreat.
no support anymore on either flank, and they're becoming surrounded, and they have to bail.
Thank you, sir.
I do what I can,
I'm glad you understood what I was trying to say.
I got you.
All right. Well, and for the rest of the questions, we're going to turn to my notes here. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, that questions are submitted by some of our awesome patrons over at patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. And if you'd like to submit questions for our guides to answer and get exclusive content that takes a closer look at all things Gettysburg and Gettysburg related, please consider joining us on Patreon today. That's patreon.com/addressing Gettysburg. And some of you might be like Rick and lucky enough to be able to sit in on a recording and see how the magic is made. And Rick, what is your impression of the studio? Smaller than you think.
It's the immensity that really shocked me. I'm a filmmaker.
It's an old warehouse.
I love the acoustic tiles, though.
Yes, thank you.
this is what a studio is supposed to look like. But
I agree.
Maybe it is, just a tiny bit small.
I agree.
If you look at it from the outside, it's definitely not what a studio is supposed to be.
and there's no TARDIS effect when you walk in here either, right? It's not magically 5 billion square feet.
No, it's actually smaller inside than it appears to be on the outside. Yeah, no, it's well, someday we'll get into a real state-of-the-art studio. You're a filmmaker, huh?
Floor, I hear.
What?
With sand on the floor, I hear.
Sand, yes. I was thinking sawdust, but sand, I guess, would work too.
I like
and then we could walk around barefoot all day. All right, so let's get to the first question here. Brian Svab, which is a new name by me, so welcome, Brian. He says, I know the artillery on Powers Hill was used during the attack on Culp's Hill, but was it used during Pickett's charge? We went into this earlier, and you say no.
Yes. No.
Yes, no. Okay. Joe DeFuria.
There were casualties from Pickett's.
There were casualties.
By the people next to Powers.
Right, but they weren't targeted. They were just overshoots. Joe DeFuria, he says, was there a concentration of artillery that could be brought to bear onto the western slope of Cemetery Hill, where Rhodes planned to attack on the evening of July 2nd, that also played a part in convincing him not to attack in order to support Hayes and Avery?
So that I just for fun, I went through all of those batteries that could have been over there, like how many guns do they have, what kinds of guns do they have, and the book I used a lot to kind of look through this stuff is Harry Fonz's Culp's Hill and Cemetery Hill.
Oh, sure.
He does give pretty, balanced infantry versus artillery, and it's page 172. There's a pretty small but detailed map of all the batteries over there. But when you count them up, there are, that night, there are at one time 34 cannons that can face the town from, so even like Weidrich's battery is not, by the time it's time for Rhodes' attack, Weidrich's battery could be able to turn, toward the town if necessary. So you can count the cannons that he has. So you've got some guns at the top of the hill that are like. Then there's Wilkinson's, now Bancroft's battery, that's straddling the Baltimore Pike. They can face north down at the town directly. But Rhodes' attack is more going to come from Long Lane, which is not too much the town. It's really just on the edge of the town. The western edge of town. And it's one of Rhodes's brigade commanders, Ramsor, that is the one that he's the furthest out in the attack from the town. So the other brigades are going to go when he goes. So he's the one that kind of goes up and scouts it, and he's like, this is not good. And Rhodes was kind of, he wasn't, moving quickly anyway. Yeah. So time is passing, and then Ramsor says it's not a good idea, and it likely wasn't a good idea. 36 guns against you. Yeah. But yeah, there are plenty of batteries in position facing out that way at that time.
But none of them directly did anything that would give them pause. It was just him just observing what's up there and saying this probably isn't going to work.
Well, and in the Leno book, they mentioned that he'd just gone through Malvern Hill, and it's like looking at all over again. Yeah. So yeah, they've been through this before, and the Union artillerists Henry Hunt and those Wainwright and Osborne are placing Napoleons where they need Napoleons for sure. So they've got 21 Napoleons that are facing, the approach from the town or next to it. So it's going to be pretty ugly. If it definitely would be.
Yeah. Okay. He also has another question in regards to the Union artillery on Cemetery Hill being brought to bear upon advancing Confederates. What is the minimum angle of inclination that a cannon barrel needs to be lowered on the field artillery used at Gettysburg? The minimum angle of inclination. Of incline.
So how deep you can depress
How deep can you depress the barrel?
Does anyone else know the answer to this before I go into what I looked up?
I'm pretty sure it's 5 degrees.
I think that's
below.
Yeah, negative 5 degrees from, from level. I don't know.
Like, how do you know this?
That's because it sounds right. Because what's the maximum elevation?
But how do you know this? Where does that come from?
I've heard it.
No.
I don't know. It's like one of those things you think you know.
Here's the problem that I'm seeing. I mean, so one of the resources I like to look up when I only have the internet is the NPS Park Service essays that have been written. That
those are great.
Right. They're really super detailed, super concentrated. And there's one that's about artillery through the ages.
Mm-hmm.
And they talk about, like, back when there are naval guns on wooden carriages, on carts that are being, rolling back and forth on the deck, and they could shoot below zero. 15 degrees, they said below zero.
Wow.
But in order to do that, they have a special, like, wadding that they have to push back with the shell so it doesn't fall out. So
to keep it in.
And even if it doesn't fall out, if it moves just a little bit, it's bad news, because if it doesn't, so if the shell doesn't come out, then you have this big fiasco of trying to get it out. So there's none of the tables for the different types of cannons mention anything below zero, and I don't think they could do below zero.
Okay. All right. So maybe
for that reason, that if it doesn't fall out, it's going to slide.
Right.
Before you get a chance.
Maybe the most you can depress it is zero, is what you're saying?
Right.
So you can't go below zero.
So you're left with the trajectory at zero, and basically wherever it
gravity will do the rest.
Right. So as far as being able to hit things below you, it's when you're firing, like you think in like physics class, when you have to shoot something and measure how far it goes before it drops.
Yeah.
That's what they're thinking as far as below what they're firing with long range ammunition.
I mean, hey, that answer is better than what we came up with. So, I mean,
but we could test it, though.
Well, let's get a cannon and let's start.
Would it just fall out?
Well, we'd have to get a smooth bore for that, right? I mean, because the rifled round would be a little tighter in there, wouldn't it?
The rifled rounds don't. I mean, that's not a tight mechanical fit when you're ramming that round.
No, because it's the
the Whitworth would be the exception to that.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a Phil Cole question. He's into all the specifics of He knows. He can tell you the measurement of the windage around the.
Around the shell.
Hey, see, the rifled rounds are using essentially a driving band, right? So what's happening is when you ram the round home, when it fires, there's this like cap on the end of the round.
Yeah, like a soft lead.
That kind of pushes forward and expands into the rifling.
That's what catches the rifling. Yeah.
It up until it fires, there's nothing that's
holding it.
Well, and so maybe they could do something to keep the round back, like they had in the Navy, like 100 years before or something. But I don't think they have that with them, and they don't have any training for how to do that.
I would think that it would behoove you in the Navy to be able to depress below zero because you can fire at the water line, whereas
and like sharks.
And sharks, of course, yes, for dinner. And then, but to have that maybe on land, they thought it wasn't necessary and they didn't make them that way. I don't know. That's a good. We're gonna have to look into this a little bit more and find out. So the answer to that question, who is that asked that question, Joe, is I don't know, kind of, something like that. So that's what it is. Chris Whitmore, he says, can you discuss the actions of the Union artillery covering the Baltimore Pike? Were there any attempts to exploit that route south of Culp's Hill by the Confederates? Did the Confederates try to take Baltimore Pike somewhere south of Culp's Hill?
No, I would say not really. Of all the worry that they put on that spot, it's like the Confederates never really, in the high command, never really knew about it. And the only people that go over that far is kind of by happenstance, I would say, because it's the 2nd Virginia Regiment that was opposing the Union troops that are closer to Spangler's Meadow during the late morning of July 3rd. And then they just kind of keep probing over that way, and they end up against the 6th Corps Neal's Brigade that is now Lost Avenue. Their regiment's up there. So there's like a ridge, and that's about as far as they get. but neither side is really being aggressive when they're going. They're both just kind of protecting each flank.
Right.
Just trying to make sure that nothing's coming for them, and they kind of do the same thing at the same time.
Do you think that Stuart's move over there is an attempt to get to the Baltimore Pike via like the Low Dutch Road or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The cavalry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, okay. So that's
Jeb Stuart.
Okay, but that's like all the way back.
That's all the way back.
Okay. So what was the question again?
I don't know. Can you discuss the actions? Were there any attempts to exploit that route south of Culp's Hill by the Confederates?
Okay. So yeah, that corridor that we have the picture of, no. And that's always a mystery. I think. I don't know if Tom McMillan's book that's about the rebel. The
Wesley Culp book, Gettysburg Rebels.
There are these people they could use as guides. It's his family's farm.
Yes.
And they don't, and now he's dead. But that not even just even though he's in that area, he's there, and he's on the flank of the Confederate Army, and he's still not even. It's like even the brigade commanders aren't really.
That's what's so weird to me about all that. Yeah. But still, how far south could they go in order to have or as many of the elements of war that you need on your side to be effective? How far could they really go, and with what troops? The Confederates aren't,
like you were saying, no artillery.
Yeah, no artillery. So okay, all right. Well, wait a minute. So there's sort of an answer for that one as well. Robert Maggie. He says, how much direct supervision / input did Henry Hunt have over what was happening on Culp's Hill during the action between the evening of 2nd and the morning of the 3rd? And how do you direct an artillery defense in the dark?
As far as Culp's Hill, it's the 12th Corps Artillery reporting to. There's only one battery that is not 12th Corps on Powers Hill, and like at that end, like even the regular batteries are 12th Corps next to Powers Hill. So it's Alpheus Williams delegating to his artillery, commander. And I mean, Hunt is everywhere.
Yeah.
So he's got to be there at some point. But he has very capable subordinates over there, especially Osborne and Wainwright. He's really got good people up there that he doesn't really have to micromanage them, but he's always checking in with them to make sure. And a lot of times it's like a double check. Like, I would have hoped you have done this. Well, I've already done this. But
it's not his job to micromanage what's going on the front, right?
he is doing that in a way. He's everywhere on the field.
He's doing it, but that's not necessarily what he's supposed to or required to do. He's just doing it because he's good at what he does.
Well, he's the overall commander. He should be checking in with all the Corps artillery equally, and I think that's what he does.
Yeah, okay.
And going off of that, the 12th Corps Artillery Brigade, how does Lieutenant Muhlenberg get that command? Because it seems unusual for a lieutenant to be in charge of a artillery brigade.
It's just that people in the Union Army they're slow to promote the artillery, and it's just kind of the way it is. But you also have people, because it's not just the Confederate Army that reorganizes significantly before the Gettysburg campaign. The Union artillery is reorganized as well. So the Artillery Reserve is a new thing after Chancellorsville. So there's been a lot of shifting people around, and I'm sure, things are slow to kind of shift into the right spot. That was a question I had on the battle walk, too.
All right. Harold Hahn wants to know, how often would a brigade receive new or updated cannon?
Well, there are these little slips that you send in to the Ordnance Department quarterly that you list the cannons that you have and their condition and whether you need replacements. And as fast as they get back to you, I don't know, but you can request guns on a quarterly basis from the department.
So you have 3 months basically to ruin the gun or take good care of it, and then you can get a replacement possibly. Cliff McCurley, can you talk about how you discovered the battle-used cannon up at the seminary. I happened to be in the studio when you first told Matt and Eric about this last June. Was what U.S. unit used it, and have you talked to the park about trying to move it? Thanks, guys. Cliffy from Pleasanton, California. What the hell is he talking about? I don't remember this.
Because you weren't here.
But he said Matt.
You weren't here.
I wasn't?
No, it was Cliff and I were in here.
Oh, okay.
And you came back from a tour.
Okay.
So
go
I
ahead.
was researching this battle walk and just trying to look into all the little personal stories I could find, and there's the story about Reynolds Battery on day 1. They lose gun number 1, and as far as serial numbers go and people that talk about them to prove that which guns are here, that's a definite one. Like, everyone is mentioning that it's the fact that they lost the first gun that was accepted by the Ordnance Department, a rifle from Phoenixville. So they lose gun number 1, and part of the reason why everybody's mentioning it is because they want to make sure that everyone knows that there was nothing else they could do, that they lost this cannon, and but it was okay. There's nothing else they could do about it. So we knew that gun number 1 was lost, but there's this story that's floating around, and I found it first on a website where they were selling gun number 4. I think it's this artillery trader in Michigan, and $69,000 for a cannon that was possibly at the Battle of Gettysburg. So they were selling gun number 4, and they had this story that so when Reynolds is wounded on the first day, Gilbert Reynolds or John Reynolds is the one who's wounded. Or what am I talking about?
John's the general who was killed. What, was the other guy named John too?
Yeah, so there was a John Reynolds that organized that battery.
Okay.
And what am I trying to say?
I don't know.
And so his brother is in charge of the battery at Gettysburg on the first day. Okay, so his brother, Gilbert.
General Reynolds' brother.
No.
Oh, the other John Reynolds.
Forget Lancaster.
John Reynolds has nothing to do with anything.
These are the New York Reynoldses.
Okay,
They're
the New
from
Yorkers.
Rochester.
Okay, very good.
Okay. So John Reynolds from Rochester organized the battery, and there's this story that he arranged for the first 6 cannons to be approved off the line from Phoenixville to be sent to his battery.
Oh, cool.
So he has guns 1 through 6.
Nice.
How cool would that be?
Yeah.
But nobody talks about when they get them that being special, so when they get the delivery of, they mentioned getting new guns, I think, and when they got them, but I wonder where that story came from. So, and if it's true, then gun number 5 is on the battlefield, which is really cool. So gun number 5 from Phoenixville is in a Confederate position on Seminary Ridge by itself. But that if I could prove that it was true, it would be cool to move it to the right place so that you could say, because gun number 1 is now in the Lomas Center. It's in a private collection, but it would be another gun that you could say for sure was here at the battle.
Collect all 6.
So I called this company, and I was just going to talk to somebody, and I found the guy that's been working there for 60 years or something. I don't know. He couldn't remember. And that the coming weekend, Reynolds Battery reenactors were going to be at the Spangler Farm. So I'm like, well, I'll just go and talk to those guys. And I found out there's this whole controversy as to whether it's true or whether it's not. And the guy that wrote the story is dead. The guy who organized the reenactment unit is the one that told that story, and nobody knows where he got the information from. Okay, so there's another.
The plot thickens.
There's an article that came out not too long ago in Artilleryman magazine about guns in Ricketts Battery, because he was interested in one of maybe his ancestor from Hanover that was in the battery, and he bought this pile of papers at a trade show, and in the pile was one of those quarterly slips that was handed in. So you think about how frequently they're writing these slips and handing them in. There were, thousands of them. but they're really hard to find because when you handed in your quarterly slips to the Ordnance Department, they would write down the information in a ledger book and then throw away those little pieces of paper.
Okay.
So he found this slip of paper, and the date was like right after Gettysburg, and it mentioned the serial numbers of all the cannons that they had at that time right after Gettysburg. So the next spring, I guess, when they, or I don't know. But anyway, he was able to prove that there are 2 cannons in Hanover that were with Ricketts Battery, or at least one. At least one.
Okay.
Matches the serial number. That was with unless they got a new one, right? In the meantime, which wasn't likely. So I figured, the only way I could prove that story is to either find the slips or to read the ledger book and see if those guns were listed as being at that time. And what's really remarkable is that they have gun number 1. That it was the first one accepted by the Ordnance Department, so they're just starting to get in the hang of making these things,
right.
And it's still being used. And not only is it still being used in 1863, but they're able to recapture it in the Wilderness Campaign. So the Confederates were using it all this time. Wow. So they get it back, and if you look at it at the Lomas Center, it's not in bad shape.
It's in very nice shape.
So it's like if that gun was the first one and it was hanging out all that time, gun number 5. Was on the battlefield, that maybe they were still using it at that time too.
That is cool, though, that the first gun, 3-inch ordnance gun from Phoenixville.
But probably likely if they got gun number 1, that gun number 5 went to someone else that was at Gettysburg. Like it was.
Yeah.
So.
I don't know.
But I don't have the proof yet. So the next step is to go to after I was there. I got to meet all the. Important people in Reynolds Reenactment Battery. So they said if I find the answer, I can fire the gun, one of their cannons.
Oh, well, then let's help you find that answer, because that would be fun.
So the next step is a trip to the National Archives. I know not all of the ledger books exist, but there are some of them that do.
It should be interesting. Well, keep us posted on that. And finally, Ken Berry from such sitcoms as Mama's Family. He says, how much did Stevens Battery, the 5th Maine Light Artillery, contribute during the assault on East Cemetery Hill? I mean, in my mind, and, just looking there, I'm up Stevens Battery there, I'm looking out over this field, and I'm seeing the left shoulders of a whole bunch of men, and I want to shoot into them. That's what I want to do, because I'm seeing the side of the line. Am I right? Am I wrong? What did Stevens Battery do?
Well, they had all morning to adjust their sights, and they'd already kind of lobbed some shells at the town, because they can kind of see down the edge of the town across the railroad tracks,
right,
where like Gordon's brigade and like some of the Confederate troops were moving. So they'd already tried to, range their guns, and now infantry are walking right into that.
Beautiful killing field.
So I mentioned earlier, but the good account for this is Maine at Gettysburg. That is Ed Whittier, who's now in charge of the battery, talking about this. I have a short paragraph.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Give it to us.
Okay. Okay. So before this, they're talking about how it's like, well, the bombardment was over, and but now it's starting again. So now people are coming to attack them, and all right. So now they're starting to fire at the infantry coming across the field, and he says, "Slap went the heads of the rammers against the faces of the pieces, a most welcome sound. For at the same moment came the order, fire by battery, and at once there was the flash and roar of our 6 guns, the rush of the projectiles, and along the front of the enemy's charging line, every case shot, our long-range canister, burst as if on measured ground, at the right time in the right place, above and in front of their advance." And then there's a guy in the 33rd Massachusetts that he is citing in this account, talking about that, because the 33rd Mass is the infantry regiment that's like just below them to the left of the battery. So at 8:30, he said, we had an oblique fire on them, and when they were under the steep acclivity of Cemetery Hill, where the guns on the crest couldn't touch them, the 5th Maine had an enfilading fire on their whole left and center. In this position, no other artillery could reach them, and they were delivered over to the hot, unsparing havoc of our canister, and it wrought their ruin.
Wrought their ruin. Well, that was a powerful ending.
Can you picture him like writing this out? She's like, so excited.
Well, now, do you know what? Are you going to do any tours this year? This season? With the ALGB.
I'm going to take a break.
ALBG. Sorry, I got my numbers confused. My letters. You're going to take a break. You're not going to do one this year.
No.
How come?
It's just it consumes you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you're going to be giving the tour for like people that want to know more.
Yes.
So
right.
Like you think you're like never done, searching for more things to add to it.
Yeah. It does sound like a lot of work.
I was trying to explain that to somebody. There's a guy that goes on a lot of the programs, and he's like, I wish you guys would do more of them. I'm like, well, it's so much work because we make that much work for ourselves. It's like we really want to deliver a good program, and it is stressful.
A lot of people I don't think realize how much work goes into a lot of what you guys do.
And some guides have been doing it for like 30 years, and they've got programs that they've done before that they can bring out again, once a lot of time has passed, and add to it the next time, which is a lot more relaxing average, I guess. But for some of us that have just kind of started out, I'm sure that Lewis has so much work before all those battle walks that you guys do, and
he does put in a lot of work, and we make sure that we let everybody know that tip the guy, because you're not we're going on a 2-hour tour. But that 2-hour tour started in August of the previous year.
Well, and you always want to go one step further because people are going to have questions. So it's not just the material you're presenting.
And you want to get your visuals together. There's a lot that goes into it. Yeah.
Yeah, you should talk to Fran about that.
The visuals?
Fran did a program on Cooper's battery and went into when Fran goes hard, he goes hard.
Yeah.
He
I know.
Went into all the details of how artillery works, and
They were just in here, and he had a 3-ring binder full of copies of things and everything, and he donated this for us to hang on the wall. But it's this was actually he got it from Thomas Lowry's book, but it's actually from what was this from, Eric? Do you remember what he said?
Some guy did a study of several thousand.
Oh, that's right.
Courts martial.
This was put together here. While no clear quantitative scale is possible from reading 5,000 Union court-martial records, it would appear that these descriptions are among the most common and are arranged in order of seriousness, which the court proceedings and conclusions seem to reflect. Beastly drunk being the worst, and this is the top 10 degrees of drunkenness from Union Army court-martials. Would you like to hear them?
Sure.
Working our way up to the most drunk you can be. Number 1, slightly drunk. Number 2, in liquor, but not drunk. Number 3, intoxicated, but not drunk. Number 4, drunk, but not too drunk for duty. Number 5, on a spree.
Oh, boy.
Number 6.
That's a pretty big jump, I think.
Number 6, drunk and disorderly. Number 7, too drunk to do his duty. Number 8, habitually drunk. Number 9, staggering drunk. And number 10, beastly drunk.
Those are real descriptions.
Those are real descriptions that were pulled from the transcripts of court-martials.
That's a pretty good T-shirt idea.
Yeah.
The beard T-shirt, that was a huge hit.
The what?
The one that's like how long your beard is. It tells you what.
Oh, I never
means.
saw that.
It's kind of cheesy. The drunk one would be better.
Yeah, no, I like that. All right, well, that's what we'll do. We'll work on putting that on a T-shirt. And in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to thank you, and we hope that you have all the T-shirts you need. But if you don't, be sure to check out our shop at dressinggettysburg.com/shop. And there's a whole bunch of stuff there, including the world famous Tim Smith cool T-shirt.
Cool.
And maybe we'll have the Jessie Wheedleton Well, you got to get a catchphrase first, and then we'll think of a T-shirt for you, Jesse. Okay. All right. So get that catchphrase, and then that's about it. Mike Lentz, thanks for sitting in there. It was nice having you. Jeff, thank you for guarding the dog over there and causing commotion in the middle of the show. And Rick, thank you for sitting in with us, and thank you for your patronage. Thank you all for listening, and we will talk to you next time. All righty.
All right, got a picture of Jenny dead on the floor.
Oh.
She's not breathing.
Need a Corps badge or other insignia for your uniform? Then check out the Badge Maker. Here's what some of his satisfied customers had to say. Miranda said, I ordered an identification disc from Joe and it's fantastic. He hand-stamped it exactly as I wanted. Greg said, my unit has purchased from him in the past quality badges and good service. And Jerry S. says, the Badge Maker is the go-to place for accurate replica Civil War badges. So go to CivilWarCorpsBadges.com and attach a message with your order saying you heard about him on Addressing Gettysburg.
Our hearts so stout have got us fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Wherever we go, they dread the name of Garryowen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down ale and pay the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt shall go to jail from Garryowen in glory. Instead of spa, we'll drink down